At Prime, the Institute of Race Relations has approached the Public Protector's Office to investigate allegations of maladministration in the Gauteng Education Department. The IRR wants Busisiwe Mkhwebane to look into claims of 1.2 billion rand in irregular expenditure by MEC Panyaza Lesufe's office. It wants the probe to look into three elements, and joining me in studio to discuss this further is the IRR's Herman Pretorius. Herman, thank you so much for talking to us this evening. I see there that you're calling for this probe and you want three elements, to be part of this investigation. Which are these three elements?
The first one you mentioned, it's the irregular expenditure or the alleged irregular expenditure of 1.2 billion rand. Then secondly, there is this website that Mr. Lesufe proudly announced about a month ago, saying that the department had worked on this for 6 years. And the website is about giving access to online learning resources and curriculums for teachers. And I mean, that's a wonderful idea. I think all South Africans can get behind that. But then you go look at the website, and software developers and web developers tell me that the website consists mostly of free open source programming or free open source elements, many elements of which are now outdated. And it took them 6 years to build this website, which is unsatisfactory and has some substantial structural problems in terms of sustainability. And then the third option of issue, of course, is the placement system that we see the failures in these past few days. So those three things read together, if you put them together and realize it's the same department, the same leadership responsible for that, you have to ask serious questions, and that's what we're doing.
And you talk about the free open source elements. In layman's terms, what do you mean?
Open source programming or open source elements, if I understand correctly, those are programming algorithms and elements and protocols that people develop and publish freely on the internet. And the philosophy behind it is, it's a bit like Wikipedia in a sense, that you can get multiple input from many people and improve the software or the elements that way. So it's not something you have to buy access to. And the problem the IRR specifically has is, if you're going to spend 6 years developing a website, we need to know how much money was spent on that website. We need to know what that money went for, because if it's not the elements of the website itself, then, I mean, there are some serious question marks over the constructing of that website.
And the people that alerted you to this free open source programming, do they have any research done, or is it all just based on assumptions?
It's not assumptions. You can look at the coding behind the website itself. You can inspect the elements, and from that you can identify the various elements. And one person I spoke to also indicated that there's if I understand what they tell me correctly, there's a what you call HTTPS. Now that's a protocol built into a website to ensure data integrity, privacy, security. And this website doesn't have that protocol. So the data, the integrity of the data, I mean, it's severely compromised. So, it's a wonderful idea, but if the taxpayer spent money on this, we need to know how much, and we need to know what that went on and who spent it.
And when we look at the placing system that you also have an issue with, and you're asking the Public Protector to look into, we saw a lot of parents, in the past few days, really upset about the system and saying that it hasn't really done anything for them in terms of placing their pupils in schools. Is that the issue that you have with this particular placement system, or do you have another issue with this particular system? What are you saying the Public Protector should look into here?
If the government, national or provincial, is going to go to parents and say, we are going to remove from you the choice where you send your child, and we are going to take that decision on ourselves, so we're limiting your freedom, then, I mean, I've got a problem with that as a first step, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt in saying that they can achieve better results for the South African children. But if you then take that system and you introduce it in 2016, and in 2019 2019 building up to 2020, it still gives this kind of, problems where 34,000 grade 1s and grade 8s haven't been placed in schools yet. I can't tell you what's wrong with the system, but I think any parent and any South African can look at that system and say there are some serious questions to be asked here. There needs to be some accountability, because this system is failing, the grade 1s who should be looking forward to going to big school next year, getting that first bag, that first T-shirt. And somehow that first day, that excitement is now in doubt because of Mr. Lesufi's department.
But one of the things that, the department says it is trying to remedy here by this particular system is the fact that, I know you say that according to you, it's limiting to freedom, parents being able to apply anyway. But there are schools that were not accessible to some of the parents, and the department is also trying to move to remedy that in order to ensure that the playing fields are level. Are you saying that the department's approach is flawed there?
Fundamentally, yes. I think anyone who makes any sort of claim that the legacy of apartheid doesn't still ruin lives, doesn't still affect even young children, age 6, age 7, I think anyone denying that would be, divorced from reality would be a nice way of putting it. But the question is then, how can you get people from disadvantaged backgrounds, the vast majority of them black kids, how can you get them to good schools? And the Institute of Race Relations, we've done a lot of work on this, and systems like a voucher system, where the government makes vouchers, as were coupons, available to parents, saying, instead of taking your tax money and spending it on the schools as we see fit and then telling you where you need to send your child, what we're going to do is we're going to take that tax money and we're going to transform it into vouchers and give the parent the voucher. And then that parent can spend that voucher at any school they want to send their child to. In that way, you can ensure that there are options, because I firmly believe that a parent will always make better decisions for their children than a bureaucrat or some system.
But then what happens then in a case where schools are not willing to transform and do not want parents to use the voucher that you're suggesting?
That shouldn't be allowed. If that voucher system is implemented as the IRR argues, then every single school will be able to receive that voucher and go to the department and say, we've received this voucher, we can exchange the vouchers we received for the money to pay for the child's education. There should be no opportunity for any school to refuse a voucher system, or any public school. I think private schools is a different matter, they have their own decision-making structures. But to address this transformation, this creating of opportunity, the voucher system does that. It ensures that, you can, a domestic worker who never had the chance to get an education under apartheid can now send their child to the best schools the state can possibly provide.
And tell us about this maladministration. What is involved here?
All three of these elements. You don't accidentally have irregular expenditure of 1.2 billion rand. There's some administrative function not working there, and that needs to be pinned down. If you're going to implement a system for school placement and somehow you manage not to place 30,000 kids in schools, there's maladministration going on there. And with a system motivated by the best intentions, but taking 6 years to develop something that is actually very, very basic, somewhere there's a decision-making administrative breakdown, and the public protector needs to look into that, because only by looking into those instances can we make sure that South African kids looking up to Siya Kolisi now can get the access to that education, which will be the first step to becoming the next Siya Kolisi.
And have you spoken to the public protector? I know that you say that you've approached her to investigate, but have you had a discussion with her? What are the timeframes for this investigation?
We have received confirmation of our complaint that it was received, and if I understand the process correctly, the next step is for the Public Protector's Office to consider the legal position. Do they have the mandate? Do they have the locus standi to look into these matters. If they conclude that they do, they will appoint a lead investigator onto the case, and then that investigator will liaise with us essentially to make sure and to keep us up to date with the investigation.
And if they don't, are you prepared to maybe take some of what you've proposed here to meet with the Gauteng Education Department and see if you can be able to iron this out?
Absolutely. Part of, on the Public Protector's website, they say that before lodging a complaint, try to speak to the people involved, try to exhaust other channels, and we did. We even got one of my colleagues even got the contact details of Mr. Lusufi's personal assistant in the hope that we could find some way to communicate, to get his side of the story. And the phones just kept ringing. And that also goes to an accessibility problem. If the IRR, the organization I work for, with our resources and my day literally spent trying to get accountability, if I can't get that, then the parent worrying about where the next paycheck's going to come from, where the next school meal is going to come from, then parents can't have that accessibility. So the fact that we've been struggling to get into contact with Mr. Lusufi and his department, that's another issue. And that's why we decided to step in, because we know that South African parents have better things to worry about.
Herman, I have to thank you for this evening. Thank you for coming through to talk to us and
Pleasure.
tell us more about your request to the Public Protector. That is Herman Pretorius, who is from the Institute of Race Relations. When we come back from the break, we continue to look at the leading stories of the day, and we'll also have a conversation about the investment summit that wrapped up today.